Joining us today from Daily Faceoff is Frank Seravalli. Hello, Frank.
How you doing, Brad?
Excellent, thanks. Hey, before we start talking about the Leon show from Saturday night, I gotta get your opinion on the breaking story today. It's not official, but the NHL and Rogers agreeing to a new 12-year TV contract worth $7.7 billion U.S. That's just a little over $11 billion Canadian. It's a 12-year deal. You have initial thoughts on that? That's big money. That's not couch money.
No, that is humongous money. And look, it's more than double the current media rights deal in both total dollars and annual dollars, which is significant. And more than that, behind the scenes, there's been a ton of whispering from NHL league sources, which suggested that the commissioner had mentioned to his governors that he was going to find a way to 3x the media rights deals. And I thought that at the time that was probably a bit of a pipe dream,
right?
Considering the state of where everything has been. And here's one thing to know. The commissioner never, ever underdelivers.
Yeah.
He never overpromises. And it looks like they're certainly well on the way to doing that, because we also haven't had any word as to whether or not this deal is exclusive. And if it's not, then that will also mean that Amazon, which has had a slice for a while now,
right,
will likely continue to have a slice, which could then get us to that 3X number.
Yeah, there's nothing to say that they can't just divvy this up. Right now, for example, TSN has the broadcast rights in Montreal, Ottawa, and in Winnipeg. That could continue along if they decide to sell some of that off. But you're right. The Prime experiment, how do you think that's gone, by the way? Like, what have you been hearing? Like, here in Canada, obviously, people have just been, it's a new way of getting the game being delivered to your house, and some people struggle with that a little bit. But have you been hearing anything around the league about how it's worked out?
No, I think the feedback has been really positive from viewers and from teams, from league officials. For one, they're excited to have a partner in Amazon, which has such massive reach.
Right.
And two, look, this is streaming is the new way of everything. You know, when I hear 12 years, the first thing that I think of is that broadcast rights deal goes through 2038. I mean, I can remember being in a spot in 2014 thinking 2026, that sounds like another planet away.
Crazy talk. Yeah.
And yeah, you have no idea what the technology is going to look like between now and then. Who knows? Maybe by 2030, we'll all be out of jobs because AI has taken over. But it just goes to show you that it's a really long time to watch technologies develop. And I'd imagine that the way we consume hockey in 2025 is going to be a lot different than the way that we consume it by 2035.
I love the way you worded that. You were very, very, very polite, and you said maybe we'll be not working. I just would like to be living when this contract ends. You know what I mean? That's a lengthy term of a deal. I don't think we're going to see a ton of change here in the Edmonton region with this, but I guess we'll see how it plays out over the next little while. Sounds like there's still a few more steps to go on this. Are you hearing that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Look,
okay.
Edmonton is locked in for a long time with Rogers. Their deal got done last summer. And so it's probably fair to say also with Rogers buying 100% of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment that quite obviously they're not going anywhere either.
And I'm guessing the name's going to stay on the building too here. That's just a crazy hunch.
Yeah, but who knows? By the end of it, maybe their name will be on every building.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
In Canada,
yeah. Hey, let's get to the Oiler matchup on Saturday night. A sizable victory over the Calgary Flames, but it was the way it happened and who led the attack late in the third period and into overtime as Leon Draisaitl makes his return. I'm sure you weren't surprised to see the kind of effort we got out of number 29 in that game.
Not in the least. That was Hart Trophy caliber performance, and not just because it kind of stuck a dagger in the Calgary Flames playoff hopes, which were dwindling with the St. Louis Blues run, but
right.
Just the dominance on display, I think, was a real reminder for everyone watching from both near and far about how well he's played consistently from start to finish this season and how much of an impact player he's been. So incredibly impressive to watch. And I think if his Hart Trophy candidacy wasn't cemented before, then he's certainly in the pole position right now.
Did you? I got to be honest. We were talking just before the start of overtime. We all knew who was going to end that game, right? Because when guys like that get on that kind of a run, they want to make sure that they put the exclamation mark on it, and Leon certainly did that.
Yeah, not only that, but also when you think about just from a historical perspective, it's not just getting to 50, but also, being that caliber of player at 50 goals and 50 assists. Only 10 players in league history have done it 4 times in their career. And Leon Draisaitl is the only active player to do it. So it's a remarkable achievement. And I think the really exciting part, if you're an Oiler fan and you're sitting back today trying to figure out what all this means when it comes to the playoff race, this team could look very different in 2.5 weeks' time.
Oh, yeah.
With McDavid and Frederick, and then on the back end, you think of Ekholm, and there's just a lot of question marks. I assume a lot of these questions will answer themselves, but how different this lineup could look and feel, I think, changes everything about whatever worries people have right now.
Frank, everybody's got a little different take on if you were the coach, and when would you put the big guy, the other big guy, Connor McDavid, into the lineup? And I'm kind of circling the game in Los Angeles on Saturday, if he's good enough to go by that point. But I also am of the believer of the fact that I think you got to get him healthy, and I don't really care too much about the remainder of the season. You just got to have him ready to go for playoff game number 1. Do you have the same take on that?
I do. I don't have a single thought as to when makes sense.
Right.
There's not really anything you could confirm or to look at when it comes to a calendar. It's really all about feel and true honesty from Connor McDavid himself. We know he's a fast healer. We know he's a freak of nature. We know he's a guy that can, play through and has an incredible pain tolerance. But what is the right threshold for him to come back? Like, I don't want him back at 93% or 87% or something like that. I'd want him back at 100. And basically the way I would play that is go to Connor McDavid specifically, if you're Stan Bowman, and say, when do you think you can come back? And whatever his answer is, pick a game or 2 after that.
Sure.
And that's really the honest way to play it. It's almost like handling a kid. What would you like for dinner? Okay, well, no, here it is, but, we're going to have to take it out of your hands. So that he's raring to go, and that he's someone that would love to play every game if possible. But I think at some point in this case, the prudence might be the better part of valor.
I want to take a look at some of the other happenings around the National Hockey League, and I do this at peril because the first subject I want to talk about is the St. Louis Blues. And you know how everybody here in Edmonton feels about the St. Louis Blues this season. They have been. It's kind of like that car accident over there on the Whitemount Freeway. You don't want to watch it. You don't want to take a look at it, but it's just we seem to be watching how St. Louis is doing every single night this season thus far, just to see how the two guys are doing that aren't playing here anymore. And it's been tough to watch.
Well, on the plus side, as the Blues have won their 9th straight game, at least Dylan Holloway put zeros up on the board in their last game on Saturday. I mean, that's maybe the best positive I can come up with for you.
Yeah.
Because he's been on an outrageous tear. 3 goals in his last 5, 6 points in his last 5, 26 goals, 62 points. It's been crazy to watch, to see it all come together. And look, I like to give Bob the gears, and I just did it to him again on Friday's show, because we can't get through an episode without talking about it.
Sorry to bring it up.
It's almost required.
Yes.
And Bob can say to everyone on Oilers now that, hey, I've been, preaching for more opportunity for Dylan Holloway. And that part is true, but I don't think even in a best case scenario would anyone see Dylan Holloway after 89 games in an Oiler uniform, play 75 in St. Louis and have 62 points. I mean, since the coaching change when Jim Montgomery took over, it's 52 and 52 now. And to think that he's at a point per game stretch, I mean, if you saw that coming, show me your receipt. That's all.
The other team I want to talk about is the Minnesota Wild. Billy G must be getting a little nervous because it just, I know that they've gone through a lot of injuries this season. Do you think they can get back up on their feet again here in time? Because it just seems that every game's a bit of an adventure these days.
I do. And look, I think they probably were on more of an edge last week or maybe 10 days ago. Now they're 6 points clear of the Canucks, 7 points clear of the Flames. And yes, Calgary has 2 games in hand. But look, Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek are back skating again. Those are 2 of the heartbeats of their team. And Kaprizov was just recently passed in the goal scoring department on his own team, despite missing 37 games.
Yeah, just now.
So, yeah, Matt Boldy just has 1 more than him. He's got 24, and Kaprizov has 23 goals, and he's missed 37 games. So that is not really all that different than what I was just saying about the Oilers and having a different feel entering the playoffs with the pieces that are about to return. They're having the same discussion in Minnesota, and I don't think there's anywhere near, of course, the same expectations, but be careful with a team like Minnesota, because I think with the brand of hockey that they play, tough, physical, big, mean, in your face, even if you get past them, it's going to be a bruising first-round series.
I was at a dinner last night, and the Winnipeg Jets became a major conversation, and they said, what do you think about Winnipeg? It's hard to, they got all the elements in place here, but because they have not had a lot of success during the regular season, it's hard to say that I like those guys to win the West, but are you feeling any better about them now than maybe you were a few weeks ago?
It's hard for me to feel really good about anyone winning the West.
I know, it's tough.
And I mean that with all due respect to every team out there. But if you were to say to me that any one of Edmonton, Vegas, Colorado, Dallas, or Winnipeg gets through, I would just shrug and say, okay, yeah, sure. I mean, they're all equally in the mix. Winnipeg has created a gap for themselves in the standings.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're 6 points better than everyone else in the Central, or that they're, 17 points better than the Edmonton Oilers when it comes to a playoff series. I just don't believe that to be the case.
Although they've got, I think, the best goaltender in the league. And we know that, you got they call it the Stanley Cup playoffs for a reason, because goalie's a lousy, dumb name for the round. But, if you've got the great goaltending, he's just got to get a little more support this time around. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes with that.
But he's gotten that all year, and that's the part that I'm just real curious to see whether or not that can continue. 256 goals for. They've scored with ease. They have 20 more goals scored than the Oilers this year, and I don't know that anyone would say that they have a vaunted different attack that's so much better than Edmonton. Yet when you look at their goal differential, it's a 62-goal spread.
Huge. From
the Jets to the Oilers, which shows you the power of the goaltending. But what happens when either one of those things go sideways? Either you get to the playoffs, you punched in the mouth for the first time all season long, you don't know what to do, and or at the same time your goalie doesn't come up with the saves.
Going to be a few teams that are just nursing their wounds, obviously, after the first round, because it is going to be – it's always fun, the first round, but this year I think there's going to be a few big teams going down. It's just it's going to be fun to watch, but for some fan bases it's going to be horrifying, I have a feeling.
It's fact. I mean, look, it all depends on the way the bracket shakes out, but – I mean, with what we're looking at now, particularly out east with the Leafs now being a couple points clear of the Lightning and Panthers,
right?
They're in a spot where they set up a Battle of Ontario and a Battle of Florida if they're somehow able to hang on and win the Atlantic. And then maybe there's less carnage on the Metropolitan side of the bracket with the Caps running away with their division and them facing the Montreal Canadiens in round one, who are on pace to kind of sneak in and grab that last spot. But you're talking about one of Tampa and Florida or Florida going home, one of Dallas or Colorado guaranteed to go home, and then you're on upset alert with some of these other teams. Like, as well as St. Louis has played, given what we just talked about, winners of 9 in a row, would it shock anyone if they're able to knock off one of the division winners?
Hey, it could easily happen, right? And an Oilers Kings series, it could be a coin flip too. You just don't know, right? Bring it on.
Well,
I can't wait to get through these next couple of weeks.
I know it's kind of a tease to have to play out the string here, and I wish we could just kind of fast forward a couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Frank, thanks. Always great chatting with you. Appreciate it today.
Bryn, have a great week.
All right. Thank you.